Welcome back to DeLorean Rental, your number one choice for renting a DeLorean time machine. Today we are going to talk about the history of the DeLorean, DM-12. The DeLorean is a rear-engine two-passenger sports car manufactured and marketed by John DeLorean's DeLorean Motor Company (DMC) for the American market from 1981 until 1983, ultimately the only car brought to market by the fledgling company. The DeLorean is sometimes referred to by its internal DMC pre-production designation, DM-12. DM-12 name was never used in sales or marketing materials for the production model. Designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro and noted for its gull-wing doors and brushed stainless steel outer body panels, the sports car was also noted for a lack of power and performance incongruous with its looks and price. Though its production was short-lived, the DeLorean became widely known after it was featured as the time machine in the Back to the Future films. With the first production car completed on January 21, 1981, the design incorporated numerous minor revisions to the hood, wheels, and interior before production ended in late December 1982. Shortly after DMC filed for bankruptcy, and after total production reached about 9,000 units. Despite the car having a reputation for poor build quality and an unsatisfactory driving experience, the DeLorean continues to have a strong following driven in part by the popularity of Back to the Future. 6,500 DeLorean were estimated use will be on the road as of 2015. History. When details surrounding the DeLorean were first announced in the mid-1970s, there were numerous plans and rumors that the DeLorean would have many advanced features, such as elastic reservoir molding, ERM, a unique construction plastic chassis, a mid-engine layout, an airbag, 10 miles per hour bumpers, and ultra-wide Pirelli P7 tires. None of these would materialize in the production vehicle. Originally, the car was intended to have a centrally mounted Wankel rotary engine. The engine selection was reconsidered when co-motor production ended and the favored engine became the Ford Cologne V6 engine. Appearing in October 1976, the first prototype was completed by American Automotive Chief Engineer William T. Collins, formerly Chief Engineer at Pontiac. The prototype was initially known as the DSV-1, or DeLorean Safety Vehicle. As development continued, the model was referred to as the DSV-12, before changing to DM-12, the 12 deriving from the target list price of $12,000 upon release. The Ford V6 engine would soon be abandoned in favor of the complete drivetrain from the Citroen's EX2000, deemed a more reliable choice. The 1,985cc, 121 cubic inches i4 engine from Citroen was ultimately deemed underpowered for the DeLorean. When Citroen learned of DMC plans to turbocharge the engine, Citroen suggested that DMC find another engine. Eventually, the fuel-injected V6 BRV engine Peugeot Renault Volvo was selected. As a result, the engine location had to be moved from the mid-engine location in Prototype 1 to a rear-engine location in Prototype 2, a configuration which would be retained in the production vehicle. The chassis was initially planned to use elastic reservoir molding ERM, which would lighten the car and lower its production costs. DeLorean had purchased patent rights to the essentially untested ERM technology, and it was eventually found unsuitable. Prototype 1 interior was significantly different from the production vehicles. Prototype 1 had a prominent full-width knee bar, as it was intended to be a safety car. A medium brown leather covered the seats, but they were much flatter and did not have the comfort and support of the production seats. A black steering wheel with a fat center was intended to hold an airbag, and the driver had a full set of Stewart-Warner gauges. A central warning system would check various fluid levels and even warn of low brake pad thickness, though, even at this time, it was suspected that production cars would not have this feature. These and other changes to the original concept led to considerable schedule pressures. The design was deemed to require almost complete re-engineering, which was turned over to English engineer Colin Chapman, founder of Lotus Cars. Chapman replaced most of the unproven material and manufacturing techniques with those then employed by Lotus, including a steel backbone chassis. In order to train the workforce, a small number of pre-production DeLoreans were produced with fiberglass bodies and are referred to as black cars or mules. After several delays and cost overruns, production at the Dunmurry factory, located a few miles from Belfast city center, finally began in late 1980. Around this time, DMC officially dropped the name DMC-12 on its now $25,000 car in favor of the model named DeLorean. The DeLorean sports car, as it was described in advertisements, began production in December 1980, with the first production car rolling off the assembly line on January 21, 1981. The DeLorean Motor Company was placed into receivership in February 1982 and filed bankruptcy on October 26 of that year, just a few days after the arrest of its founder, John DeLorean, on drug trafficking charges. Consolidated International purchased then sold DeLoreans and partially completed DeLoreans still on the assembly line and assembled approximately 100 cars to finish the remaining production on December 24, 1982. Sales and production. Prior to the release of the DeLorean, there was a waiting list of eager buyers, many of whom paid over MSRP. However, that exuberance subsided very quickly and production output soon far exceeded sales volume. October 1981 was the highest month of sales for DMC with 720 vehicles sold, but by December, the U.S. was falling into recession and interest rates were rising, which further negatively impacted sales. Despite this, instead of reducing production, John DeLorean doubled production output, further adding to the inventory of unsold cars. By the end of 1981, DMC had produced 7,500 cars but had sold only 3,000. By this point, DMC was in a financial hardship, having sold only 350 units in January 1982, and in February of that year, DMC was placed into receivership. In February 1982, unsold 1981 model year cars were priced for immediate clearance in hopes to make room for the more expensive 1982 model year cars. In March, telegrams were sent to all 343 dealerships requesting each buy 6 cars to help save the company. None of the dealers responded with a sales order. By this point, dealers were sitting on unsold inventory, as were the quality assurance centers and hundreds more sitting on the docks in Long Beach, California. By the end of May 1982, production at the factory was shut down. Another attempt in July 1982 was made to revive sales by offering discounts to dealerships, an offering of 5-year 50,000-mile 80,000 kilometers warranty with the first year or 12,000-mile 19,000 kilometers portion secured by a major insurance carrier, but this was not successful. Bruce McWilliams, VP of Marketing for DMC and later acting president for DMC America, after resigning his position, said the car could never be sold in the numbers John DeLorean predicted. Production information was lost or scattered upon the shutdown of DMC, and production figures for the DeLorean have never been verified based on official factory records. Despite some unexplained VIN gaps, based upon VIN information, owners have been able to piece together the approximate quantity of DeLoreans produced. In February 1982, DMC was placed into receivership, and the factory continued to operate at a reduced production rate until the end of May, when Consolidated International acquired the unsold and partially assembled cars in November 1982. It brought back workers to complete the cars remaining on the assembly line. It was decided to make the remaining completed 1982 model year cars into 1983 models. The remaining cars' VINs were re-VIN into 1983 cars by taking the original VIN and adding 5,000 to it, and changing the CD in the middle of the VIN to DD, thus making the 1983 model. For the 1981 model year, there were 6,700 DeLoreans produced, VIN 500 to 7,199. For the 1982 model year, there were 1,999 DeLoreans produced, VIN 10,001 to 11,999. For the 1983 model year, there were 276 DeLoreans, VIN 17,000 to 17,170, and 20,001 to 20,000 105, bringing the total estimated reduction to 8,975 cars. Construction. The DeLorean features a number of unusual construction details, including gull-wing doors, unpainted stainless steel body panels, and a rear-mounted engine. Body. The gull-wing doors on the DeLorean were a distinctive feature. The body design of the DeLorean was a product of Giorgetto Giugiaro of Ital Design. To create the car, Giugiaro drew on one of his previous works, the Porsche Tapiro, a concept car from 1970. The body is paneled in brushed SS 304 austenitic stainless steel, and except for 3 cars plated in 24-karat gold, all DeLoreans left the factory uncovered by paint or clear coat. Painted DeLoreans do exist, although these were all painted after the cars were purchased from the factory. Small scratches in the stainless steel body panels can be removed with a non-metallic scouring pad, and metal pads can leave iron particles embedded in the stainless steel, which can give the appearance of the stainless rusting, or even sandpaper. The stainless steel panels are fixed to a fiberglass underbody. The underbody is affixed to a steel double Y-frame chassis, inspired by the Lotus Esprit platform. The chassis was coated with epoxy, a material that protects steel against corrosion. Another distinctive feature of the DeLorean is its gull-wing doors. The DeLorean features heavy doors supported by cryogenically preset torsion bars and nitrogen charged struts. These torsion bars and struts were developed by American aircraft company Grumman Aerospace. The doors feature red and amber lights to mark their edges at night, and small cutout windows, because full-sized windows would not be fully retractable within the short door panels. Although early production cars had fitment problems due to faulty striker plates and issues with weather seals, these were tolerable because gull-wing doors allowed occupants to enter and exit the car in tight parking places, as well as attracting attention from people nearby. The DeLorean's engine is a Peugeot Renault Volvo PRV 2.85 liters, 174 cubic inches, SOHCV6, rated at 130 horsepower, 132 Farad start, 97 kilowatts at 5,500 RPM, and torque of 153 pound-foot, 207 Newton-meter at 2,750 RPM. These perfs were a development of the 2.7-liter V6 used in the Renault 30 that were designed and built under special contract with the DeLorean Motor Company. This engine has a 90-degree layout with a light alloy block with cast iron cylinder liners and light alloy heads with cross-flow Hemi chambers. It is cooled by a front-mounted radiator with twin thermostatically controlled electric cooling fans. The engine has a 91mm 3.6 inches bore and 73mm 2.9 inches stroke, a compression ratio of 8.8 ohm, and was fitted with a Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection system. 2 transmissions were available for the DeLorean, a 5-speed manual and a 3-speed automatic, both with a final drive ratio of 3.44:1. Suspension. The DeLorean has a 4-wheel independent suspension with coil springs and telescopic shock absorbers. The front suspension use is double wishbones, while the rear is a multi-link setup. When the DeLorean first arrived in the U.S., the car had a higher than expected wheel gap in the front suspension. Despite having significantly less weight in the front and rear springs had the same spring rate and used lower quality steel, which resulted in the nose-high look. Some people have cited a last-minute change in U.S. bumper height requirements led DMC to raise the vehicle just prior to delivery. However, this is not true. Design drawings show that the design met an HTSA minimum bumper and headlight heights of the time. Steering is rack and pinion with an overall steering ratio of 14.91, giving 2.65 turns lock to lock and a 35-foot 11 meters curb-to-curb turning circle. DeLoreans are equipped with cast alloy wheels, measuring 14 inches 360 millimeters in diameter by 6 inches 150 millimeters wide on the front, and 15 inches 380 millimeters in diameter by 8 inches 200 millimeters wide on the rear. These were fitted with 195/60 14 front and 235/60 15 rear Goodyear NCT steel belted radial tires. The DeLorean is a rear-engine vehicle with a 35% to 65% front-rear weight distribution. The DeLorean features power-assisted disc brakes on all wheels, with 10-inch 250mm rotors in front and 10.5-inch 270mm in the rear. Reception. The automotive press was generally complimentary. Motor Trend, Car and Driver, and Road and Track made generally positive remarks about the car, particularly its commendable fuel economy, and argued that the DeLorean is more of a GT car rather than a sports car or race car, given a disappointing performance in comparative tests. Later reviews have been harsher. In 2017, Time included the DeLorean in its list of the 50 worst cars of all time. In his book Nav Motors, 101 Automotive Lemons, Tony Davis described the build quality as woeful. Top Gear writer Richard Porter included it in his book Crap Cars, calling it dismal. Performance. DMC's comparison literature noted that the DeLorean could achieve 0 to 60 miles per hour, 0 to 97 kilometers per hour in 8.8 seconds when equipped with a manual transmission, but other sources indicate an acceleration time of 9.5 seconds. When equipped with a manual transmission, the DeLorean accelerated from 0 to 60 miles per hour, 0 to 97 kilometers per hour in 10.5 seconds, as tested by Road and Track magazine. The car was described as not quick for a sports GT car in this price category by Road and Track. Quality problems. DeLorean's early production models in particular suffered from poor build quality as well as mechanical issues. Early production cars needed as much as 200 hours of work at DMC quality assurance centers prior to being shipped to dealerships for delivery. DMC eventually sent 30 factory workers to the quality centers in the U.S. to learn about the problems and how to fix them. Quality did improve over time, and by 1982 many of the quality issues had been resolved. A total of 4 recalls were issued by the factory to correct problems such as a sticking throttle, front suspension issues, and an inertia switch. Other quality issues included other problems surrounding the front suspension, clutch pedal adjustment or lack thereof, brake rotors, instruments, in particular the speedometer, power door locks, and weak alternators. Many early DeLoreans were delivered poorly aligned, with the toe end incorrectly set, leading to premature tire wear. In addition, many dealers were reluctant to perform warranty work on DeLoreans, since DMC owed them money for past warranty claims. Some dealerships were not able to perform repair work properly, as DMC never issued a proper service manual. The lack of quality service at dealerships was a point of frustration for many DeLorean owners at the time, particularly those who paid over sticker price to purchase one of the first cars. Upon release in 1981, a DeLorean had a base MSRP of $25,000, or equivalent to $75,000 in 2021. MSRP increased in 1982 to $29,825, equivalent to $84,000 in 2021, and again in 1983 to $34,000, equivalent to $93,000 in 2021. Options. A 3-speed automatic transmission, priced at $650 million SRP, was the only extra cost factory option. Interior color choices were gray or black. The gray interior became available mid-1981 model year. The standard feature list included stainless steel body panels, gold wing doors with cryogenically treated torsion bars, 5-speed manual transmission, bridge of rear leather seats, air conditioning, FM cassette stereo system, power windows, locks and mirrors, a tilt and telescopic steering wheel, tinted glass, body side moldings, intermittent windshield wipers, and electric rear window defogger. Several dealer options were available, including a car cover, sheepskin seat covers, floor mats, car care cleaning kit, black textured accent stripes, gray Scotch cowl accent stripes, a luggage rack, and a ski rack adapter. 1982. DeLorean gray interior. 1982. DeLorean gray interior. 1981. DeLorean black interior. 1981. DeLorean black interior. 1981. DeLorean with optional accent stripe. Optional accent stripe. Production changes. Although there were no typical yearly updates to the DeLorean, several changes were made to the DeLorean during production. Instead of making changes at the end of the model year, DMC implemented changes mid-production. This resulted in no clear distinction between the 1981, 1982, and 1983 model years, but with subtle changes taking place almost continuously throughout the production run. Hood styles. The original hood of the DeLorean had grooves running down both sides. It included a fuel filler flap to simplify fuel filling. These cars typically had a locking fuel cap to prevent fuel tampering or theft by siphoning. In August 1981, the fuel flap was removed from the hood, although the hood creases remained. After the supply of locking caps was exhausted, the company switched to a non-locking fuel cap, resulting in at least 500 cars with no hood flap, but with locking fuel caps. The final styling for the hood included the addition of a cast metal DeLorean emblem in the lower right corner and the removal of the grooves, resulting in a completely flat hood. This final version was on all 1982 to 1983 model year vehicles. Early 1981 hood. 1983 hood. Side-by-side comparison of an early 1981 hood. Left versus a later model 1983 hood. Right. Other changes. Closing the gull-wing door from the inside can be achieved by using a grab handle. For people with shorter arms, DMC installed leather pull straps attached to the grab handle. Beginning with late model 1981 cars, DMC revised the location of the leather pull strap to be centrally mounted and integrated into the lower door panel. The rear trim panel has an armrest extension that is visibly two separate pieces on early 1981 models. This armrest has a tendency to break loose as people get in and out of the vehicle. In late 1981, this was resolved by having the armrest extension integrated into the rear trim panel, the assembly wrapped in vacuum-formed vinyl. Although the styling of the DeLorean's wheels remained unchanged, the wheels of early 1981 models were painted gray. These wheels sported matching gray cinder caps with an embossed DMC logo. Early into the 1981 production run, these were changed to a polished silver look with a contrasting black center cap. The embossed logo on the center caps was painted silver to add contrast. In 1981, the DeLorean came with the Craig M-FM stereo radio with cassette. Since the Craig radio did not have a built-in clock, one was installed in front of the gear shift on the console. The Craig radio was replaced with an ASI radio in the middle of the 1982 production run. Since the ASI radio featured an onboard clock, the clock on the console was removed at the same time. The first 2,200 cars produced used a windshield embedded antenna. This type of antenna proved to be unsuitable with pole radio reception. Oftentimes, the radio would continually seek, attempting to find a signal. A standard whip antenna, which was later changed to a manually retractable antenna, was added to the outside of the front right fender. Despite improving radio reception, this resulted in a hole in the stainless steel and an unsightly antenna. As a result, the antenna was again moved. The final antenna was an automatic retractable version installed under the rear induction grille behind the rear driver's side window. The small sun visors on the DeLorean have vinyl on one side and headliner fabric on the other side. Originally, these were installed such that the headliner side would be on the bottom when not in use. Later on in 1981, they were reversed so that the vinyl side would be on the bottom. The original 80-amp dual-chiller alternator supplied with the early production DeLoreans could not provide enough current to supply the car when all lights and electrical options were on. As a result, the battery would gradually discharge, leaving the driver stranded on the road. This happened to DeLorean owner Johnny Carson shortly after he was presented with the vehicle. Beginning with cars built in late 1981, DeLoreans were fitted from the factory with a 90-amp motor roll alternator, which solved this problem. The Gold DeLorean. For Christmas 1980, a DeLorean American Express promotion planned to sell 124K gold-plated DeLoreans for $85,000 each to its Gold Card members, but only 2 were sold. The first gold-plated American Express DeLorean was purchased by Sherwood Marshall, an entrepreneur and former Royal Canadian Naval officer. This car, VIN 4300, is equipped with a manual transmission and a saddle brown interior. Marshall donated his DeLorean to the William F. Harrah Foundation National Automobile Museum in Reno, Nevada. The second gold-plated DeLorean was purchased by Roger Mize, president of Snyder National Bank in Snyder, Texas. This car, VIN 4301, equipped with an automatic transmission and black interior, sat in the bank lobby for over 20 years before being loaned to the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. A third gold-plated car was assembled with spare parts that were required by American Express in case one of the other two that were built was damaged. All necessary gold-plated parts were on hand, with the exception of one door that was sourced later. The car was first acquired by the winner of a Big Lots store raffle. This car, VIN 20105, is in a private collection. Two other privately commissioned gold-plated DeLoreans exist, one being VIN 1542, but their whereabouts are unknown. Manufacturing facility. DeLorean's factory at Dunmurry in Belfast, Northern Ireland. In October 1978, construction of the six-building, 660,000 square feet, 61,000 square meters manufacturing plant began in Northern Ireland. It was designed and managed by Brodie and Hawthorne Architects of Belfast and constructed in 16 months by Ferrans, McLaughlin, and Harvey. A test-proving track was also constructed next to the factory. Officially known as DMCL, DeLorean Motor Cars Limited, the facility was located in the Cuts in Dunmurry, a suburb on the southwestern edge of Belfast. Unit production was scheduled to begin in 1979. But engineering delays and budget overruns caused the assembly lines to start only in early 1981. Workers at the factory were generally inexperienced. Many never had jobs before joining DMC. This may have contributed to the reported quality issues attributed to the early production vehicles and the subsequent establishment of quality assurance centers (QAC) located at various delivery locations. QACs were set up in California, New Jersey, and Michigan, where some of the quality issues were to be addressed and resolved before delivery to dealerships. Some of the issues related to the fitting of body panels, higher output alternators, and gull-wing door adjustments. The combined efforts of quality assurance improvements at the factory and the post-production quality assurance done at the QACs were generally successful, although workmanship complaints still occasionally arose. The 1981 DeLoreans were delivered with a 12-month, 12,000 miles, 19,000 kilometers warranty. By 1982, improvements in components and the more experienced workforce meant that production quality was vastly improved. Disputes between dealerships and customers arose later because many dealerships refused to do warranty work because they were not reimbursed. Downturn and bankruptcy. The lack of demand, cost overruns, and unfavorable exchange rates began to take their toll on DMC's cash flow in late 1981. The company had estimated its break-even point to be between 10,000 and 12,000 units, but sales were only around 6,000. In response to the income shortfall, a restructuring plan was devised where a new DeLorean Motors holding company would be formed, which in turn would have become corporate parent to DMC and each of its subsidiaries. DeLorean Motor Cars Limited, manufacturer, DeLorean Motor Cars of America, distributor in the U.S., and DeLorean Research Partnership, a research and development company. In January 1982, due to United States Securities and Exchange Commission questions about the company's viability, the company was forced to cancel the stock issue for the holding company that DeLorean had hoped would raise about $27 million. John DeLorean lobbied the British government for aid, but was refused unless he was able to find a matching amount from other investors. What followed is a matter of debate between the British government, the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, DeLorean, his investors, and the U.S. court system. At some point in 1982, John DeLorean became the target of an FBI sting operation designed to arrest drug traffickers. He was arrested in October 1982 and charged with conspiring to smuggle $24 million worth of cocaine into the U.S. The key element of evidence for the prosecution was a videotape showing DeLorean discussing the drugs deal with undercover FBI agents Benedict, Bendisa, and West. Although DeLorean's attorney Howard Weitzman successfully demonstrated to the court that he was coerced into participation in the deal by the agents who initially approached him as legitimate investors, he was acquitted of all charges, but his reputation was forever tarnished. After his trial and subsequent acquittal, DeLorean quipped, "Would you buy a used car from me?" In the end, sufficient funds could not be raised to keep the company alive. DMC went bankrupt in 1982, taking with it 2,500 jobs and over $100 million in investments. The British government attempted to revive some usable remnants of the manufacturing facility without success, and the Dunmurry factory was closed. DeLorean himself retired in New Jersey, and the dream with which he had mesmerized Britain's Labour government of industry rising out of the ashes of the Troubles in Northern Ireland was shattered. He claimed that the DMCL was deliberately closed for political reasons, and at the time of closing was a solidly viable company with millions of dollars in the bank and 2 years of dealer orders on the books. Approximately 9,000 cars were made between January 1981 and December 1982, although actual production figures are unclear and estimates differ. Some of the cars manufactured in 1982, but not shipped to the States, as the U.S. arm of DMC had no money to buy the cars from the factory in Northern Ireland, with 15XXX and 16XXX vehicle identification numbers are actually 1982 models that were given later VINs, dated 1983, by Consolidated International, now known as Big Lots, a company that had a buyback program with DMC and had bought out the remaining unsold cars and also the inventory of unused parts left in the factory after the bankruptcy. The DeLorean assembly plant was eventually occupied by the French automotive supplier Kitt, which began to manufacture cast aluminum cylinder heads for automobile engines at the Dunmurry facility in 1989. As of Kitt's acquisition in 2015, the factory employed more than 600 people. The facility is currently operated as Kitt UK, a subsidiary of Linamar Corporation. Back to the Future. The DMC DeLorean is most notably featured as the time machine in the Back to the Future film trilogy. 6 DeLoreans were used during the production, along with one manufactured out of fiberglass for scenes where a full-size DeLorean was needed to fly on screen. The cars used in the first film had the original V6 engine whose sound in the movie comes from the V8 engine of a Porsche 928. 2 of the cars used in Back to the Future Part 3 were equipped with Volkswagen engines and dune buggy chassis for filming the scenes in the western terrain. Only 3 of the cars still exist, with one that was destroyed at the end of Part 3. 2 additional cars were abandoned, and the fiberglass replica used in Part 2 was scrapped. Universal Studios owns 2 of the remaining cars, occasionally putting them on display or using them for other productions. The third car, used in Back to the Future Part 3, was restored and was sold at auction for $541,200 in December 2011. A fully restored Back to the Future DeLorean can be viewed at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.